Welcome, dear readers. You're listening to Time to Read, a Winnipeg Public Library podcast book club. We're recording today from the Millennium Library in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, which is within Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ininew, and Dakota peoples, and in the National Homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. In this episode, we will be discussing Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman. I'm Dennis from the Idea Mill, and all I can say is, God damn it, Donut. Across the table from me is...
I'm Toby. I'm an outreach librarian based out of here at Millennium Library, and my constitution and charisma are high today, so watch out. And across the table from me is...
I've been assigned crawler number 3, crawler name Trevor, level 1, race human, class librarian.
A good book can carry me away from an average and ordinary day, yeah. So keep it down, leave me alone, close the doors and turn off the phone, 'cause all I ever really need is a little more time to read.
And you, dear readers, we wouldn't do this without you. If you've got comments about what we've read or maybe some book suggestions, we'd love to hear it. You can find our email address and all our social media outlets by going to our website at wpl-podcast.winnipeg.ca and scrolling to the bottom of the page. Hang around till the end of the episode to enjoy our most cryptic segment, Nerd Words for Word Nerds. Before we proceed further, let's check in with the panel. What's up?
I'm going to tell you guys something. On my way down here to the Millennium Library today, I was driving, and right in front of me there was a flatbed truck that was going along. So if you can imagine a cab with a empty flatbed, and it was going at a fair clip, and it hit a bump, and do you know what fell off the back of it?
A book.
No. 2 work gloves. Landing right in my path, and thankfully they were just work gloves, so I rode over them, but I thought, wow, I just needed to share that because, I guess they weren't tied down. It was windy. It is windy today, so I don't know if that was a factor. But I experienced that. I don't think I've ever experienced a couple of gloves flying off the back of a truck, and now I wish it was a book that had flown off. But
Maybe it was a message from the universe that it's time to get to work.
Yes.
Like on your garden or on your...
Perhaps.
Yeah. Anyways, we're glad it wasn't like, a tire or like a metal beam or something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Anyway, I just felt I needed to share that with the two of you and our listeners.
Thank you.
Oh, and I want to shout out Bob. Bob came into the Idea Mill a couple of weeks ago, and he recognized me by voice, which is the second time that's happened to me. And it's kind of delightful to know that people are listening to our podcast and actually come on in and chat.
And Bob is his actual name? That's not a pseudonym? Okay.
No, his name is Bob.
Okay.
Good, solid name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyways, we were talking for a bit, and he goes, wait, I recognize your voice.
That's great.
Yeah. I told him about this episode, too, so hopefully he will be listening and will have read Dungeon Crawler Carl. But I guess maybe I'll find out if he comes in again. Okay, so Toby is going to tell us about the author, and then Trevor is going to give us a summary of the book.
Matt Dinneman is from Gig Harbor, Washington, though he moved around a lot as a child as he was in a military family. He began writing quite young and started his first novel in high school, which formed the basis of his first novel, The Shivered Sky, which was released in 2003. Prior to becoming a full-time writer, he worked as an artist. He would sometimes travel to pet shows and draw portraits for pet owners, becoming familiar with the world of cat shows and cat breeds, which is relevant to this book. He published several works during the 2010s, including The Grinding and 2 of the A Dominion of Blades series. He began writing Dungeon Crawler Carl in 2019, putting it on the free web serial site Royal Road, where it became very popular. He self-published the first book on Amazon in 2020 and would continue publishing in this form until 2024, when the print rights were picked up by Penguin Random House. To date, 8 books in the series have been published. The latest, A Parade of Horribles, published this year. Well, May, right? Will be published
coming out May 12th.
Okay, there we go. This year, he also published the standalone novel Operation Bounce House. His favorite authors are Guy Gavriel Kay and Robert R. McCammon. He plays bass in one band, and he does not actually hate Cocker Spaniels. Have you read Operation Bounce House?
No.
No, okay.
Okay, so this is the part of the podcast where I usually give a summary of the book that we are about to discuss. But I thought this book is so weird that if the summary would just be one damn thing after another that happens to these characters. So I thought instead I would try to give a bit of a background to the world building for the structure of this book. And that may help us and help the readers who have not read the book themselves get a bit of an idea. So if you can imagine... And think about this almost in like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy style, that there are aliens, different races all around the universe. And what they do is they choose planets. I think they have 6 different species or races that they do this with, humans being one of them. And so what they do is they choose a suitable planet and they seed it with conditions favorable for humanity to flourish. So they're playing the long game here, if you can imagine. So they choose, in this case, Earth, and they've set up things so that humanity will start to develop in culture and civilization. Then the aliens will visit the planet again shortly after governments start to form to show that they have laid claim to this planet. And then they go away again for another couple of thousand years until the humans develop their culture and civilization to a certain way that would be sort of like mid-20th century, our time. And then they start the process of mining and reformatting the planet. And it's a very specific thing because what they do is at a certain time, when the time is right, they will transform the planet by imploding every structure that's been made on the planet at the exact same time. So if you can imagine, buildings and cars and airplanes and everything kind of gets sucked down into the Earth's core. And what is extracted from this process is rare minerals. But a very, very tiny percentage of what is actually changed is actually mined for that. The biggest benefit is something that is created in this transformation, which is called... It's kind of like a reality TV show situation where below the surface of the Earth, 18 levels, or sort of like dungeon levels, are created. And around the world, there are stairways that open. Whoever survives the initial collapse of the buildings are encouraged to take the staircases down to the first level. And once you go down, you can't come back up. And once you go down, you're on the first level, you're part of the game. And in this case, it's called Dungeon Crawler World. The humans that survive are sort of the unwilling participants in this game, which is watched by alien races all around the universe. And just like a reality TV show that we're familiar with on Earth, this time people will have their favorite characters, there's advertising rights, and there's lots of money to be made. Also kind of going on in the background is the corporation that is running this year's dungeon crawl is financially strapped. And so they are pressured to start the crawl as quickly as possible and to finish as quickly as possible so they could raise a lot of money and pay off their debts to these other alien races. So that's all kind of macro stuff that's happening in the background before the story begins. And so I'm just going to read the first paragraph and then go into a bit of the story. So the book begins with, the transformation occurred at approximately 2:23 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. As far as I could tell, anyone who was indoors when it happened died instantly. If you had any sort of roof over you, you were dead. That included people in cars, airplanes, subways, even tents and cardboard boxes. Hell, probably umbrellas too, though I'm not so sure about that one. So that's the voice of Carl, who is our hero, our main character. He's a guy, 27-year-old guy who has just recently broken up with his girlfriend, and he's still house-sitting his ex-girlfriend's cat, whose full name is Princess Donut the Queen Anne Chunk, or just Princess Donut or Donut. And a few seconds before the whole world collapses, Princess Donut decides to go outside and climb up a tree and make all kinds of cat noises. So Carl has decided, well, I better go out and get this cat, because he says, because I am not, paraphrase, a jerk. So he goes out to collect this cat wearing his underwear, and I think he slipped on his ex-girlfriend's pink Crocs and not much else, a jacket or something, when he goes and collects Donut, and then everything happens. I don't know how we would respond to a situation like this, but Carl and Donut take the first flight of steps down.
Well, because it's cold.
Oh, because it's cold, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And this looks inviting.
Yeah.
And now he's down on the first level. And he realized he's now part of a game. And anyone who's played sort of role-playing video games will recognize a lot of the things that happen. They're like, all of a sudden, there's a health bar that appears in his vision, and there's an inventory section where he can see what he's carrying, and all these things. And so now he's part of the game. And what happens to him, I guess, is not only the balance of the rest of the first book, but all of the other books in the series. And there are 7 books out right now. An 8th is coming out just in May. And on all accounts, the 9th book will be the last book in the series, split into 2 parts, as far as we know now. Now, we know series have a way of sometimes extending beyond that, but that's sort of the plan. And the author does have a sort of an end goal in mind to how to wrap up this whole story. And so that's the setup, would you say?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so that's...
Very thorough.
Well, okay, I'd say it's thorough on the setup, but it's kind of, I didn't really even get into some of the important characters, like Mordecai or all the other things. I mean, because I could just spend all day talking about the setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
Well, it's a different style of summary than you've done before, and I applaud the thoroughness.
Thanks very much.
So I normally say, how'd you guys find it? But in this case, I actually know how we all came across it. Because was it about a year ago, I guess, we were talking during an episode of a different book, and I had mentioned how I don't have very sophisticated reading tastes because the current book I was reading was about a guy going through a dungeon with monsters in it. And when I said that, I saw Trevor's eyes kind of light up for a moment. And after the episode, he goes to me and goes, "Are you reading Dungeon Crawler Carl?" I said, yeah. And I had come across the title because I follow an independent reporter on social media called Molly White, who writes a lot about crypto. And she had read it, and she has a lot of interesting book suggestions. So I read it and enjoyed it. And you had found a different source.
I did. The mysterious algorithm presented it to me when I was online, I think on Instagram of all places. And it was like a short, almost like book talk / ad about this book. Extremely spoiler free. It didn't sort of tell you anything about, but it was using all these like superlatives, like the craziest thing you'll read this year, or and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, maybe I can try to track this down. And as it turned out, the library did have the first 2 or 3 books, and I thought, well, why not give it a try? And that's how I found it.
Yeah, and then both of us yammered on about it, and that's how Toby found out about it.
Yeah, it sounded fun and quick, so it piqued my interest, and so I too read it.
Yeah.
And what's kind of unusual maybe about this month is that I think all 3 of us have read the first book, but not specifically for the podcast to talk about, that we've all read it months and months ago. Mm-hmm. Some of us have I've definitely reread it more to prepare for this, but this is one of those books that we sort of picked, but we had all 3 of us had already read it when we decided that this would be a good one to talk about. Yeah,
actually, I think that's right. This is the first time we've ever all read the book before we picked it for the podcast.
I think so, yeah.
Well, that's why we picked it for the podcast, right? Because we had all read it.
Well, yeah, because we thought it was fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so spoilers, dear readers, we're all going to recommend this book afterwards because we enjoyed it. And we figured we deserved a fun book approaching our 100th episode. Mm-hmm. I know you said you've read the first 3.
Yes.
And have you read any of the others?
I read the second.
Read the second? Okay.
Yeah.
And I have read all the 7 books that have been published so far, and looking forward to number 8. So we haven't all followed as far along in the series, but we have definitely all read it. So that's our episode. So where do we want to start talking about it? Toby, give us something.
Okay. This book is fun. I don't think I appreciated how fun it was until I started the next book I'm reading, which is like this very serious book about eco-criticism. And it's very serious. And I think fondly back to when I was reading this, and it was fun and easy. And I looked forward to reading it before bed every night. But I don't think I'm as crazy about this book as you two. I liked it. I read the second. I think I'll read the third too, and we'll go from there. It's funny, but I find the humor gets a little repetitive. It can be a bit juvenile. I'm not a gamer. I've never played an RPG, so particularly on my first read of it, it took me a lot to kind of get in that headspace. And there's a lot of words that are thrown around that I just didn't understand. And I just found myself rereading bits and just trying, like the mental picture was hard for me to form. The second read, I got more of it. But yeah, overall, just super fun, super easy. That's my feelings in a nutshell.
Yeah, I would have been a little surprised if you'd liked it as much as I did.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Because we definitely have different reading tastes overall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we sometimes talk about guilty pleasure reading, and which I feel like it's kind of a misnomer. If it gives you pleasure, you shouldn't feel guilt. Mm-hmm. And this book is sort of very, very, like, it's pleasure reading for me, where it's fun. And it's also weirdly compelling where when you get to the end of the first book, at least when I did the first time, I immediately picked up the second book and I read through it. And then I immediately picked up the third book. And then when I was done the third book, I was going to start the fourth book until I realized I hadn't read anything except Carl for about a month. And, you know, not only did I have to read something for this podcast, but I also thought maybe I need to balance things out a little bit. So I thought I'm going to take a temporary break. But the problem with taking a temporary break is there's so much going on in the story. And then at each level he goes down or they go down, more characters are introduced and more concepts in the outside world are happening. So I'm a little scared to jump back into it with book 4 without having either doing a reread of the first 3 books to bring me up to speed or just finding a really good summary on the internet to kind of bring me up to speed, because there's little things that are mentioned, which I picked up more on the second time, that he is also kind of seeding the story with. And some of those things have already paid off in the first 3 books. And I know that other things that he has seeded that haven't even realized the seeds, I'm sure will be payoffs further down. So yeah, it's super enjoyable. I mean, yes, the humor is juvenile. There's lots of like really bad puns in there, and the violence is like unrelenting. And yet there is sort of moments of real emotional connection that you are experiencing between Carl and Donut, and particularly in the first book, they come across a group of people from an old folks home that are being shepherded through the first level by their workers. And Carl is really drawn by the compassion that these workers, these selfless workers, are doing to try to help the residents navigate this insane situation the best they can. And so there are these little moments of heroism and grace that come out of the most of the other, you know, the goofiness of this whole concept.
This book is right up my alley because I like sci-fi, I like games, I like things that are a little wacky and over the top sometimes. It's a balance, right? It can go too far. I'm not normally into too much juvenile humor, but I will put up with it for, you know, a good payoff. I want to say this is a really well-written book and book series. I have always, I think I've mentioned this on multiple episodes, I like plain, clear, straightforward writing. And this is exactly that. He's not a wordsmith in the sense of, you know, you're not going to come away thinking any of it's poetry. You're not going to come away thinking, wow, this guy's vocabulary is incredible or whatever. But you're also not going to be annoyed by any wordplay or tricks that may come into more sophisticated writing. It's just clear communication about what's happening in the book. And there's, you know, good imagery, there's good dialogue, there's a good balance between establishing characters that are deeper than just a cardboard cutout versus, you know, describing action, with having setup, giving you background into the universe around the story. It's really well balanced, the type of thing that you don't have to think about and notice because it's just done very smoothly and clearly. So from my point of view, this is what I think of as really good writing, which doesn't meet a lot of definitions. I know it's not literary in any way, shape, or form, but it's fun. I felt that same thing, like the character relationships, especially between Carl and Donut, and especially as the series develops, it's lovely.
Because we should say, too, that at the beginning of the book, when they're on the surface, Donut is just a regular, normal cat, as far as we know. And when they descend into the first level, they're urged towards a sort of a tutorial guild room where they meet a character called Mordecai, who is sort of supposed to explain the rules of the game to the characters and then by extension to the readers. And I can't remember now exactly when it happens, but Donut goes through some kind of a transformation. I can't remember if they takes a potion or there's...
Well, one of the things that happens throughout the game is you get little loot drops where you get like a box and you open it up and it's got things you can use in the game, sometimes food or weapons or other things like that. And one of the things Carl got early on was a pet box because he came in with an animal. And one of them was a magical pet biscuit, essentially. And Mordecai told him, you feed this to your cat and then something will happen. And it could be up to 100 different things so you couldn't predict. But what happened was that Princess Donut became conscious and developed intelligence and strength and various other stats. And
could talk.
And could suddenly talk. And has the most amazing cat personality.
And what's great about Donut too is that she talks out loud, but then the game also allows for characters to kind of text. And so whenever Donut talks, it's usually all in all caps.
Yeah.
And what a personality, what a well drawn out character, and the way that she responds to situations and. So you get this, like you were saying, the relationship between Carl and Donut is even more exemplified after Donut transforms into a speaking, thinking character. And then she's also elevated from the status of being a pet, which is a very dependent status in the game. She becomes a crawler on her own right. She's given the status of a player character, and then she names the group the Royal
Court,
which makes her, of course, the queen. And Carl is like her manservant or bodyguard assistant kind of thing. And so there's lots of little things like that carry on throughout the story.
Yeah, I tried to imagine how my cat would react to
me
somebody
too.
human. Also, one of the fun jokes in the story is that not only does Princess Donut end up with stats and capabilities, but she's actually stronger and smarter than Carl.
Yeah.
And becomes the leader of the group by default.
And she had such a high score in charisma. She's often the person that will go in and charm whoever needs charming to get on their side. And Carl's kind of just left out to come along behind. And
yeah. And she has the most hilarious lines in the entire book. Like when she's talking about, oh yeah, Mordecai told me with my charisma I can just control people the way I control you.
Yeah, and then often now that Donut is talking, Carl gets a little bit more insight maybe into his relationship with his ex-girlfriend, because of course the cat is in the apartment the whole time and is watching and observing things, and so every once in a while there'll be these little throwaway comments that Donut will make where Carl's like, what do you mean she was dating two other people or little things like that. And of course, Donut being at home all day, we just binge daytime television so that she had an encyclopedic knowledge of it, so that when they meet another character, another alien that was watching TV, the two bond over that. And there's lots of pop culture references. At one point, Donut names a couple of goblins, Rory and Lorelai, from the Gilmore Girls, which I thought was delightful. And
that's what it was from.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's lots in there that I missed too, but every once in a while when you get something, you're like, oh, that's cute.
I'm wondering if I should leave the TV on for my cat when I'm not home.
You know, it's funny. As the novels go on too, you meet other characters that also have animal companions, and the way that they interact with each other. It did actually change the way I interact with my cats, to be honest.
How so?
So there's a character which isn't actually introduced in this novel, but she's a goat herd, and she has her goats with her. And one of those goats gained intelligence. And anyways, there's maybe a bit of a spoiler, but you'll forget by the time you get there. She ends up dying at some point, and the goat is incredibly upset and frustrated. And one of the things that he says is, I was her special little boy.
Aww.
And I teared up at that. And I tell my cat every single day, you're my special little boy.
Aww.
Because it's just, I thought, well, if there's any chance that he's ever going to get intelligent, I know that's not a real thing, but I just want him to know.
I'm going to start doing that too.
And I don't leave the TV on for our dog, but we do leave the radio on for him. And
what station though?
well, it depends on who puts the radio on. I'll usually leave CBC AM on, so you can get the news and interviews and maybe something kind of cultural. Other people in my household might put like popular music station on it.
Okay, well he'll be well rounded.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think I feel like he comes home in the day. He's like he's got something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the setup for the novel is usually like it's the process. For the first novel especially, they're walking through a dungeon. So it's like hallways and rooms, and there's various monsters walking around. And one of the things they discover as they're going around is that some of those monsters aren't things that were just created by the artificial intelligence system that runs the game. They were actually humans or aliens from other planets that have been brought there specifically to play parts. And that those monsters' participation in the game isn't any more voluntary than Carl's, that they have all been forced into this situation. So it creates interesting ethical dilemmas where, as soon as they realize that, they realize, okay, well, now we're murdering these people who, because you kind of have to, the game forces you to, otherwise they murder you.
Yeah, that scene, the hoarder, I found that quite upsetting, and like the book is generally pretty lighthearted and funny, but that boss in particular, who's a stereotype of Earth hoarder, I guess, who's, been transformed into a monster for the benefit of this dungeon and is, begging, well, I don't speak Spanish and she speaks Spanish, but I assume she's begging for her life.
Oh, I put it into a translator.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And yeah, you know what she's saying?
No.
Help me, I don't know what's going on.
That's so upsetting.
I don't know what's happening.
That's awful.
Yeah,
it is. Really, that really is a difference in tone from the rest of the novel, I think.
It's one of those things that gets tossed in there. Like, I'm not saying that this book is social commentary. But I'm also saying it's not social commentary.
Because there's a whole other aspect to it that is social commentary, for sure.
Well, one of the things that always struck me about this book right from the first one is that there's a scene, which is sticks in my head for a lot of reasons, but there's the scene where they're fighting the goblins, and they figured out that the goblin boss is in this one room behind a door, and they don't really want to go in there and fight it because they're worried about getting killed. So Carl comes up with this idea where he's got some explosives, and he's going to push them into the room really, really fast, and Donut's going to open the door just long enough to let the stuff go in, and then close the door immediately afterwards, and boom, all the monsters die, and then they can do this without endangering themselves. And so they got the plan, they got it set up. Donut opens the door, Carl pushes it in, Donut shuts the door, and they run away from it so that they'll be far away when it explodes. And Carl's like, did they get in there? Did it get far enough in? And Donut goes, yeah, man, there were a lot of babies in that room moments before it explodes, right? And so there's that. And then, of course, Carl is horrified because he didn't know that there were babies in there.
Goblin babies,
babies. But they're babies.
Yeah, they're goblin babies.
But...
Let the record show that Toby has no problems with killing babies.
Yeah, slaughter them all.
But the thing is, Carl does have a problem with that. But that's also the thing about the game, which, when you look at it as social commentary, is also true about a lot of things in the world around us. The system itself works to corrupt the people within it. So Carl is not the type of person who wanted to kill a baby, even if it was a goblin baby. But the system put him in a place where he would. One way or another, he would do something that was morally reprehensible to him in order to survive.
And then the game AI would point it out and make
twist
that knife. Yeah.
Yeah, and twist the knife and humiliate him as a result of it. And unfortunately, you can see that play out in society in a lot of ways where, you may oppose a certain thing, but your tax money is going to support it anyway. And there are other things where you get put into a situation where you do something because it seems to be the appropriate response at the time, but if you reflect on it, there are moral problems with it. Systems can work to corrupt the people within them. And the dungeon crawl is like one of those big, massive systems that takes you and... like even the way that they have to go on interview segments. So, as we said, this dungeon crawl is an entertainment thing that broadcasts to trillions of aliens around the universe to make a lot of money. And as part of it, they take them and they put them on interview shows. It's almost like, you're on Oprah and, hey, how about this? And they have to play nice. Because if you're popular in this game, people watching it may spend money to give you loot boxes that give you an advantage in the game and will help you survive. So you want to be popular. So you have to pretend you're happy or, put on a smile and put on a show. And that, it just reminds me of every customer service job where no matter how you feel and no matter how someone's treating you, you put on a smile and you give them the customer service, how can I help you? And that, again, is taken to the extreme and played for entertainment. Yeah, now I'm taking the fun out of the book.
Well, I think you also just introduced another layer to it that maybe isn't super obvious in the first book, but as we go along, it becomes more and more of maybe a subplot or a parallel plot where Carl realizes that he has very limited agency in the system, but he's going to try his hardest to burn it all down and not let the system break him. And so little by little, he is trying to do things that intentionally break the rules or find loopholes or ways that he can somehow get back at the corporation, the aliens that are doing this, which is another whole reason to cheer for him.
There are levels to the dungeon and there are levels to this book.
Yes. And I mean, on the note of social commentary, there was something about some moments and word choices in this book that gave me a bit of the ick, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It had my feminist spidey senses tingling, but use of words like whore or oh, you've won an award, 2 chicks at one time. The way certain female bodies are portrayed as grotesque. I'm thinking of the Hoarder and also Odette, who's basically just a set of gigantic boobs atop of a crab. And I want to give Dinniman the benefit of the doubt here and think that maybe, there are he's taking these Earth stereotypes and combining them with, the monsters, which is done several times. But I don't know, something about that just didn't sit well with me. Did that stand out to either of you?
Well, it was something that I thought about numerous times because the way that Odette was originally described and presented, and the Hoarder is one that stands out that way. And I know what you mean. It's hard to be sure of an author's intention, but I'm putting it in the context of this is also a system that sets you up to murder babies and then make fun of you for it, and male bodies don't really get off terribly well either. Yes,
I think of that image of there's someone's oily penis as he's peeing against a wall, and
and so I in my mind it's in that same context where these are all portrayed as, because all of that language comes from the system AI, which is always trying to be outrageous and insulting, and so that's the context I think of it in. This place, this dungeon is disgusting, and these are all reasons why. So, but I also recognize that there's this problem with language that I've always found. A lot of our language is descriptive and poetic and meant to evoke ideas, but it's hard to separate that type of thing from literal language. And it's very common to confuse them and to conflate them. And when you use language of any type, whether or not you mean it ironically or humorously or for social commentary, there is a non-zero proportion of readers who will just read it literally as written and accept it as okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what's his name? That comedian... It was a comedian who had a really popular show, and he quit it. He's a African-American, and some of his jokes had him playing a dumb hick, character that fit a lot of stereotypes.
Chappelle,
yeah, it was Dave Chappelle. And he famously quit his show because he realized his redneck racist cameraman was laughing at all these jokes, but he was laughing at them at that surface version of it. So even though Chappelle was trying to do something deeper than that, a lot of his audience wasn't watching it that way. And there have been other situations where there were comedians who made jokes and everyone was assuming that they were outrageous. I'm thinking of Bill Cosby, some of his stuff, which in the context of his later sexual assault trials show that they weren't really jokes from his point of view. He was saying stuff that he wanted to do or had done. And Louis C.K., same type of thing, where he would make jokes and everyone laughed because they were so ridiculous. No one would actually do that, and then he did it. So I appreciate that even if that, no matter how it's meant, there is always going to be that part of it where it's hurtful anyway. Mm-hmm. So I understand what you mean about getting the ick from that. And that is that is my smidgen of discomfort with this book. I tend to give him the benefit of the doubt on this just because it's the only place where that seems to be.
Does it continue into the other books, would you say?
I don't have a good enough memory to really answer that accurately. I don't think so. But I mean, the AI continues to be outrageous and gets more unhinged as the story goes. So I don't know ultimately. But there was nothing later on that kind of triggered me to think that, because I've had things where I've read or watched or whatever, and I was okay at the beginning, and then after a while I'm like, I don't think this is really good. Like something's made me uncomfortable, and I didn't get that feeling from this series. So, crossing fingers.
Yeah.
But I'm a middle-aged white guy, so like I have
people like
biases.
To pile on with this stuff, though, and when I was reading reviews, I found one other person who had kind of these similar thoughts, but no one else. And I think if they were as maybe more present or more obvious, it would be there'd be a larger collective outrage.
I'd hope so. It's popular enough that it should get flack if it's crossing lines. And dear reader, if you found an issue with that, let us know, because I do appreciate feedback on stuff like that.
Well, what's interesting too is that this show has also been greenlit this book has been greenlit for a show, and so you'll wonder how this would play out visually, and also with a wider audience that may not be readers primarily, and whether that's the same kind of nuance would get lost. I mean, it just all depends on how it's done and how it's written.
Who's doing the show version?
I feel like Seth MacFarlane's company is involved.
Animated?
I don't know.
Man, it's one of those things. If they do it well, if it comes across as well as the Murderbot series, then I would be very happy.
It's a rich text for adaptation. There's a lot of room to have a lot of fun with it. I didn't listen to any of the audiobooks, but there's I listened to little clips. Have you listened to the audiobooks where he has this very specific voice actor he works with who does all the parts, and it's apparently amazing?
Well, there's actually 2 audio versions.
Okay.
There's the one where there's a single reader who apparently did such a great job doing the female voices that someone asked if there was another.
Guy.
Yeah,
he's famous for these audiobooks.
And then there's a full cast recording where they have the whole thing played out. And my boss, actually, after I recommended this book to her and her partner, they got the audiobook from Audible, the full cast version, and they listened to it, and they couldn't stop raving about the person doing the AI voice. And just absolutely loved the performance of it. And apparently, according to a thing I saw from Dinneman, the audio versions have sold more copies.
Yeah.
So they're apparently great.
Yeah, I'd really like to listen to specifically the recordings that are just one person, because, like I said, apparently this guy is amazing, and it's like you're listening to it, but it's almost visual. He's so good.
Man, now I want to go through it another time, but as an audio version.
Report back.
Yeah, well, if you're prepping for book 8, that might be a good way to.
Yeah, but I'm going to read it because I love reading this one. It's just apparently you can't go wrong with the form of it, which is cool. Yeah, the problem my boss had was that they started listening to it on a long drive that they were taking. They were driving for a couple hours, but then they were only halfway through the book, and then they had to find time where they were both able to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe just listen or read it yourself, dear reader, and don't wait for someone else, because they'll just slow you down. To give you an idea of how much I found this book easy to read, on the reread I knew it would be fast, but I started this is Monday. I started reading it on Saturday at 12:30 in the afternoon, and I finished it by Sunday lunch. So I just plowed through it. I decided to start reading the second book again right away, just because once you start, it's like hard to stop.
Yeah, it's like chips and dip.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Just looking at the time, we can keep talking a bit, or we can start moving on. Do you have more?
I'm okay either way. I don't know if I have a whole lot more to contribute.
I mean, I have one more criticism.
Okay.
This book is such a tease. Like, especially the first time I read it, it just like, you're reading and you're enjoying it, but then it'll be like, oh, you have this for this pass for the Desperado Club, but that, you don't have to worry about that until level 4, or here's this special thing, but no, that's not until level 10. Like, there's so many things where you just want more, and it doesn't give it to you.
And I will say, like, having gone up to the 7th book, he pays off on everything he hints at.
Well, I mean, great, but like,
well,
but there's so many things.
He's an author who wants you to read his series. I think that's a sign of a well-written book.
Yeah, I guess I just find books in series, a lot of them are kind of, there's not so many loose ends when you're going into another book. They're much more self-contained. This book was just like teaser after teaser after teaser. Well,
you'd mentioned, and I was already aware that he started it on Royal Road. Mm-hmm. Royal Road is a website where people, like anyone, can write and submit stories to Royal Road. But it's a very popular hub for independent writers writing stories, and writing stories in a serial fashion. This particular book is what they call lit RPG, or literature that uses role-playing game elements as a major part of the story. So there's more books like this out there, and a lot of them are on sites like Royal Road, which harkens back to like writing in the days of Charles Dickens, where every book was like a serial and it was published regularly in magazines, and you had to keep coming back. So there always had to be a little more to draw you to the next installment. Royal Road is very much like that, and books that come out of it, because there are other books that started there and gained enough popularity that they ended up getting publishing contracts, or the authors were publishing them independently on like Amazon after they had gone through an editing process. So I think that there's something about that process which drives that kind of thing where you're teasing and building up what's coming next so that people have a reason to keep coming back in a week or two or a month or whenever you put out the next installment.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess if he wrote it in a traditional way where he was just writing a manuscript and submitting it to a publisher, it probably would have been a little more tight.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Toby. It's a little bit like is it the Chekhov rule, where if you introduce a gun in the first act, by the end of the play, that gun's got to go off. And this way, it's like if you introduce a gun in the first book, it may or may not go off by the 7th book. And it's
it just happens. Oh, like so many guns, so many guns.
And the breaks in the stories are almost arbitrary. Like I know the first book covers the first 2 levels of the dungeon, and then the second book is level 3. The third book is level 4, and that's as far as I've got. So I don't know. I mean, Dennis can say whether it works out to be a bit one level per book eventually, or not. No,
some of the books cover more than one level. They all cover at least one level. But by the 7th book is level 9. And then according to the thing I saw, the 8th book is going to be level 10 and 11. And then who knows what the 9th book will be, since that's in 2 parts. But at the very least, that's going to cover level 12, which is significant in the story. There's a lot of mythology that builds up over the course of the book, and every 3rd floor is significant for a particular reason story-wise.
And Carl and Donut also learned that the furthest that is it any human or any
dungeon crawler
has got is the 13th floor.
Yeah.
And so even though there are 18 floors, no one has in previous versions of the game got that far. And so there's we're just kind of questioning whether how far Carl and Donut are going to get, or if it goes off in some other direction. Kind of like, remember like the Harry Potter books, it was roughly 1 school year per book until towards the end where they get expelled or whatever. And I can't remember. I kind of lost track of what was going on with that, but I wonder if that will happen.
And, that's the great thing about this series. He can go literally anywhere with it almost, because the way the story is set up, it allows for that.
I understand if you join his Patreon, he often does surveys about like, what should my character do at this point? And he gives you some options, and you can choose what he writes. He's been thrown off track a few times by things that he didn't think the audience would choose. Yeah.
Well, we could talk more about this, but I think that we've probably sold it as well as we can if you're going to be interested in it, or frightened you off of it if this isn't your kind of thing. But I will say that this was my favorite discovery of last year and one of my favorite discoveries of all time for a book. This will be on my list of 100 favorite books when we do our next episode. Spoiler! Yeah, but
slots 1 to 8.
Well, I think the whole series is. I don't think we're going to do each book in a series, because then I'd have to pick a favorite, which is hard to do.
Oh, do you have a favorite of the ones you've read?
Of the series?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Each book gets longer than the previous one. That's the other thing. Each book is literally longer than the book that preceded it. So if you enjoy it, you're going to have a lot to enjoy.
I will say that in the third book, and I'll say because I don't want to be spoilery because Toby hasn't read it, it's sort of subway system based. And there's a scene in that's a payoff from the first book when Carl gets his protective shells spell, which is incredible. And I think of that scene often, how he uses that spell. But
speaking of teasers.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a rhythm to the book where there's some action, and then there's quieter periods where they collect their loot and figure out their spells and think strategy, and then there's some action, and then it's a comforting rhythm to the book as well, which some people might not enjoy as much, but I never got tired of it. But anyway, we're done. We're done talking about this. We all like it to varying degrees, with some occasional questions and maybe little uncertainty on certain points. But overall, fun book. Give it a try. If you like the first one, you'll like the rest. If you don't like the first one, don't bother with the rest because you won't like them. It delivers what it promises. Okay, so with all that said, let's move on to our next segment. Can you tell me a book I would also like? So who's got a recommendation they want to share?
I'm happy to go. And the book I picked is also a 3-word title. The book I'm suggesting is something called Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I can't believe this book came out like in 2011 or something. The reason I picked this book is it also plays heavily on the idea of a game within the novel. In this book, it takes place in the future where there is sort of like this, virtual reality space that's called the Oasis. And the plot of the story is that this sort of Bill Gates, Steve Jobs type guy who created the Oasis has died. And in his will, he has left the instructions that he has buried somewhere in this oasis the Easter egg, which is a little too much on the nose, where if a player finds this, then they inherit the rights to his entire estate and the rights to do whatever they want with the oasis. And so there are 3 keys they have to find, each player has to find along the way to get to the Easter egg. And so that's kind of the basis. There's a game. The main character is this kid. His name's Wade. It sounds like a Marvel character. Wade Watts is his name. And he gets involved in the game. And so, of course, there's the physical him, which is sitting in a chair with a set of virtual reality glasses, which isn't that interesting to see. But most of the action takes place in the virtual oasis where he meets up with other players and they kind of team up. And there's like this evil corporation that's also trying to get to the Easter egg. So they're fighting against that. It's very entertaining. It's filled with pop culture references. So if that's the thing that you enjoyed about Dungeon Crawler Carl, there's lots of that. It was made into a movie in 2018 by Steven Spielberg. And what was kind of cool about that is like, because I was saying like watching a guy with virtual reality goggles is not that visually appealing. Spielberg kind of took the plot of the book and the idea of it, but made some very significant changes to make it much more cinematic. But you get to the end as well. And what maybe Toby would like about this book is that it is a complete story. And when we get to the end of it, we know we don't have to go down another level at the end of this book. Something happens and it has a satisfying ending. Now, having said that, he did publish a book called Ready Player 2, which I haven't read, but the reviews are terrible. So my recommendation is, I'm going to try that word again. My recommendation is Ready Player 1 by Ernest Cline, but stay away from Ready Player 2.
Funny, because that was going to be my recommendation,
Holy
but I decided against it.
Crappers.
Because One, it had been a really long time since I read it. And two, I remember just being kind of meh about it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you recommended it.
There was a lot going on with Matthew Broderick and War Games, if I remember correctly, in the book, which kind of drags it down a little bit. But
I don't read a lot of books in this genre style, so I'm actually recommending a TV show this month. That show being Severance, which can be streamed on Apple. Have either of you watched Severance?
No, I have heard of it, and I like the concept.
Yeah, I have friends that have watched it that are telling me it's the best thing they've ever seen.
It is excellent. It has 2 seasons. The first came out in 2022, the second in 2025. It's about employees at a company called Lumen, and they have undergone what's called severance, which is a procedure that splits a person's memories between work and their personal life. So it creates 2 separate identities. So there's an Ininew, which is what they're called, which is the employee at work who has no knowledge of even like what city they're in or if they have a family outside of work. And then there's their outie, which is the employee on the outside who has zero knowledge of what they actually do at work. So, of course, there are nefarious things going on at Lumen, and the vibe of Severance is very different from Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's not as fun. It's much slower. They both feature sort of the system as the villain, humans trapped inside with rules they didn't necessarily agree to. They both have very dark and existential themes, things like identity, autonomy, exploitation, and they both have some mystery as the audience or reader tries to figure out what's really going on. So, great show. First season is better, as it usually is, but well worth watching. Severance.
Yeah, I keep meaning to give that a try.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm recommending a book. I normally prefer to recommend something you can get from WPL, but I don't think you can get this and probably won't be able to. It's called Discount Dan's Backroom Bargains by James Hunter. So this is one you're going to have to get via ebook, probably via Amazon, because I don't think there's any other sources for it right now. And this is a book that started on Royal Road as well and is a lit RPG. It has other similarities to Dungeon Crawler Carl too. The main character, Dan, is a ex-military guy who no-clips into the back rooms. No-clip being a video game term where the collision detection is turned off and you can go through walls. So he accidentally descends into the back rooms, which are kind of like the Dungeon Crawler world, except the back rooms has an interesting background on the internet as a thing that started as a meme on a forum many years ago and has built up its own life and is actually being turned into a movie that's coming out soon. The backrooms as a concept is just this liminal space where there's like long, empty hallways that seem to be completely deserted and weird for some reason. During his early adventures there, he encounters a creature who's a mimic, a shape changer, who's kind of broken and can't quite make forms properly and often takes the form of a dog that looks like it's made out of the same material as Croc sandals, who's named Croc, who's wacky and funny. So, you have your human and your animal companion that talks, and they're in a mysterious place, and there's role-playing things like magic and mana and, weapons, and you got to fight monsters and things like that. But that's where the similarity ends. I know that's a lot of similarity, but it is an entirely separate kind of story. They go off and the back rooms, you eventually start learning more about that as the series goes along. I just finished reading the third one actually just before I reread Dungeon Crawler Carl. It kind of lives up to its name in that Discount Dan is kind of a discount version of Dungeon Crawler Carl. The writing isn't as sharp. The characters aren't as interesting. The dialogue isn't as good. But it's kind of like comparing really good pizza versus pretty good pizza. Like, a good pizza's pizza. Like, you'll enjoy it. Anyway, if you like Dungeon Crawler Carl, you'll probably like Discount Dan. And it'll hold you over until the next Dungeon Crawler Carl book comes out, which is why I started reading it. And it's fun. It's fun. So now we go to our most beginner-friendly segment, Nerd Words for Word Nerds, in which we break down a word or phrase for everyone's entertainment and delight. Who would like to share their word first?
I'm happy to go since I also
We're
went
going to keep
first.
that same order.
Yeah, keep the order. So my word comes from the book because I think it was the name of one of the spells that one of the characters got, and the word is caterwaul. And so I think maybe even on a previous podcast, someone may have done caterwaul as a nerd word episodes ago, but maybe not. So if this is a repeat, apologies to you regular listeners. But this word first appeared in English in the 1300s as a verb applied to the wailing sounds made by cats when on the prowl for a mate. It comes from the Middle English word caterwawan, but beyond that, its origins are obscure, according to Merriam-Webster. Although the cat part of the caterwaul is thought to be connected to a cat, specifically a tomcat, but that term has been expanded from cats on the prowl to just being noises that noisy people or people that are demanding will make. So I would say that a caterwaul is an opposite of the cat's meow.
My word also comes from the book, and the word is mawkish. Zev, who is like a fish creature and also their PR agent, she describes the orcs as mawkish, and Carl doesn't know what it means, but assumes it's something like cheesy. And he's basically right. Mawkish can mean sad or romantic in a foolish or exaggerated way, or also related to food lacking flavor or having an unpleasant taste. And the word comes from the Middle English mock, which means maggot. So in its earliest sense, it was synonymous with squeamish. But not long after that, it was used to describe an unpleasant, nauseating, sickeningly sweet flavor. And it's one of several food, texture, and taste-related words that also show disdain for art that is deemed overly emotive. So other words like saccharine, mushy, or schmaltzy. So, mawkish.
Yeah, it was funny when I came to that point in the book, I had to look it up too because I wasn't sure. That was a good word.
My mom used to get mawkish chicken for me from the... I guess it's mock chicken. Never mind.
Different etymology. So my word is not related to the book directly. I've been trying to think of a word recently for a phenomenon I've noticed out in the world. I don't know quite how to characterize. I don't know if you remember a while back, a lot of conservative Christian groups started talking about empathy as a sin. You remember that?
No.
Oh, okay. It showed up a lot in my social media feed. So there are conservative Christian groups who argue that empathy is a sin because it could lead you to feel soft-hearted towards people doing things that they think are bad, like having abortions, that you may actually feel for the person and I guess not be able to stand there and yell at them while they're trying to go into an abortion clinic. Or Mark Andreessen, who is a co-founder of Netscape, an extremely influential person in the world of the internet, who recently claimed that he was not introspective at all, had never introspected, and that self-reflection was a recent New Agey concept, which is weird because Socrates was saying how the unexamined life is not worth living, and that's thousands of years ago. So there's this thing where people are taking words and making them not be what they are. And my effort to try to come to this, I was thinking of the word misconstrue. This doesn't quite cover what I'm thinking about, but to construe means to interpret the meaning of something. It was first recorded in sometime around the 1350s, Middle English from the Latin construere, to put together or to build. So to misconstrue means to misunderstand the meaning of, or take in a wrong sense, or misinterpret. But by definition, you'd think that misconstrue and misunderstand were like interchangeable. But misconstrue often carries an additional connotation that a misunderstanding is potentially intentional or motivated by something particular. So if I say you have misunderstood what I've been saying, there's not really a value judgment attached to it. But if I say you have misconstrued what I have said, there is some implied value judgment there. And so misconstrue. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this month. So thank you so much for joining us, dear readers. Next month is our 100th episode, and we are yes.
I think we're excited about it.
Well, we're excited. I don't know if anyone else is, but I didn't expect that we'd make it to 100. That's pretty cool.
I haven't done 100 of anything in my life.
Yeah. I've eaten 100 pieces of rice in one sitting.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyways, we are celebrating by talking about our 100 favorite books. Not literally just our 100 favorites. We did put out a call. We mentioned it last episode. We've also put a little ad campaign on some of our things, so we're hoping for some emails from that. We have put up posters at our branches, on our social media, asking people to send us their favorite books.
And we're going to ignore all those and just let Toby tell us what the 100 best books are.
Yep.
Well, we're not talking best books. We're talking favorites.
Yes, that's right.
Right, and that's a different thing entirely. But anyway, we got a lot of responses, and we're also going to be adding a bunch of our own responses to it. And so next month, we are going to just talk lots and lots of books. Obviously not in detail, because we don't want to make the episode many, many hours long. So some of them will just be brief mentions, but we are looking forward to going through and seeing exactly what you guys liked and loved. And we're going to share what we liked and loved over these past 100 episodes and beyond that. And we hope you will join us and just celebrate with us. Have comments or book suggestions? Send us an email. You can find all our contact info at the bottom of the page at wpl-podcast.winnipeg.ca. You can also find all our past episodes there too. If you haven't already, subscribe to Time to Read on your favorite podcasting service. Maybe leave us a review. Tell your book-loving friends about us too. And until next time, make sure you find time to read.
All I need is time to read. All I need is time to read. All I need is time to read. All I ever really need is a little more time to read.
And I discovered after this that I also just like the form of the title, because after I read the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, I read one called Space Trucker Jess. Without reading the description of the book, it was the title.
Well,
Hear
the
that,
publisher's
authors?
trying to tell you something.
Yeah. You hear that, authors? Just publish your book and title it something where it's like a 2-word description and in a name.
Noun, adjective, noun.
Noun, adjective, dungeon crawler is an adjective?
Crawleen? Crawleen, isn't it?
No.
Crawleen.
No. Verb. Sorry, verb.
Crawler is not a verb.
It's an action word.
Crawler is a noun. A crawler is a person
Oh,
who
yeah.
crawls.
Crawleen would be a
Noun,
So-
noun,
a verb.
noun,
Noun.
name.
That could also be an adjective noun name. Because what kind of crawler? A dungeon crawler.
True.
But dungeon is also...
Adjective, noun. Yeah, space, trucker, Jess.
Space is also, I guess, a noun, but it could also be
Well,
an adjective.
Place, description. Never mind. We'll figure this out off air.
Once we figure it out, we're going to win the internet.